This video is made possible by Hey guys, welcome back to ARTFX Tutorial Tuesday, in which I talk about my remix for Zomboy's Here to Stay featuring Lady Chan. Last week I talked about the build-up section in the track, and now you know how I did that. I'm gonna dive into the main drop. So the main drop section is a lot more complicated than all I've talked about earlier in this tutorial series, and I do think it's gonna be divided into multiple different videos, because the videos are gonna be really long otherwise. So one thing I did during this tutorial is I tried to record the voiceover at the same time while recording the screen capturing of the tutorial. So there might be a couple of ums and ahs and things like that in here, and I might have, fucked it up sometimes, but this is gonna be better, and this is the first time doing it like this, instead of recording the voice over after I've done the tutorial capturing. If this is gonna go right, then eventually this will speed up the process of recording tutorials, which will allow me to do much more tutorials or even do other videos like reviews on audio products. And so yeah, I want you to listen to this video and think about if you mind the us and ahs and stuff like that, and if you don't, please let me know in the comments, or if you do, let me know in the comments too, and I will think about whether I'll keep on doing it this way or go back to doing it the old-fashioned way like I did before. Let's dive into it. I'm gonna play the last part of the build-up and then the first part of the drop, and then I'm gonna dive into it. Here we go. So, let's start with the vocal. The vocal is really simple. There's two shots in the main drop. That is this one and this one. That's the only thing that's in the main drop in terms of the original vocal. There is another one in it, which is an offbeat vocal shot. I really like this. It was in the original remix pack, so I felt like using it. It sounds like this. So yeah, I did some EQing on it. I don't know why. Without it, it sounds like this. I don't know, it makes it sound a little bit thinner. I actually quite like that. Bit of saturation on it, just to drive it a little bit, give it some more grit. That's it for the vocal. The drums are exactly the same as in the rest of the track. Seriously, I've done nothing to them, there's just the same thing going on again. Then for the percussion, I added a new hi-hat in it, which is really fast, going like, I think it's 1/16. Yeah, 1/16 notes, just straight out. No swing, no nothing, it's just straight 16 notes. But together with the other two hi-hats, they really add some more pace and rhythm towards the drop section. See? So with the drums, that would sound like. Instead of this. You see how that really makes the drop sound more up-tempo in terms of the intro. I've done just some, let's see, There's a little bit of transient shaping on the hi-hat, nothing on the attack, nothing's done to it. Oh yeah, well, I've took the attack all the way down. I don't know why. If I put the attack here, makes your hi-hat a bit more short. But this works well. A little bit of release taken out of it, gain is all the way down. Can lift the gain up if I want, a little bit, make it a little bit more noticeable. That sounds pretty good. Let's go on with the synths. As you can see, the synth chords just go on through the main drop. Even though they're not really that noticeable, some notes are more noticeable than others, because the first one plays together with a bass sound. So you get this. Well, I would not mind, or I would not say like, oh, weird that you don't hear a chord in there. But it is there, it's just layered beneath it, and because of the reverb, it connects the first bass sound with the other ones, and it really fills out the track on that first hit, because that first part just needs to be heavy so that it smashes you in the face, and that's what you want. So just a little trick, you know. This offbeat one, you do hear it because there's no bass sound at that point. There's one more thing I did to the effects section. You can see I have this downlifter sample that I've used throughout the entire track. Sounds like this. Now, I used the very first half a beat, I guess. Yes, half a beat of this down crash sample. And I've placed that on every... what is it? Every bar, every start of the bar, except for this one, the last one. But it makes it sound like this. And it's just... but it adds that tiny little bit of higher frequencies to that sound. Now, one thing that would be pretty interesting to do is set up this one with a sharp Q and just raise the gain a little bit, so that you can make the high frequencies even more up front. So you could be able to do that, make it a little bit more noticeable. I don't know, it adds a little bit to the drop. It just makes it a little bit... makes it a little bit more heavy. And it's just a very small little trick to make your drop sound heavy on that first little part of the drop where it actually kicks in. Because if that part of the drop is not heavy enough, or is not big enough in terms of the rest of the track, then your entire drop will sound out of place, and that's not what you want. Let's see, where are we? 8 minutes, 9 minutes. Let's talk about the bass. So right here I now introduce the bass drop. See? It looks all complicated, but believe me, it isn't. This is the drop on its own. So the main bass sound that you're hearing is this one. That's the main bass sound you're hearing. It consists of two resampled wave files. It's a sub wave file and a mid-range wave file. So this is the sub and that's the mid-range. And those are both coming from this wave file, which is basically just the freezed version that I made with this plugin channel. As you can see, these are both turned off. So these are both turned off. See, this one is, I know, I think it's the same patch. Yeah, yeah, this is the same patch, just with a different modulation on it. But it's somewhat the same patch. So it's coming from this patch originally. So this is how that patch sounds. Listen. So I exported that and got this. It's a little bit different. I think in the meantime, after I made this, I changed a little bit in this part of the track. Maybe if I turn it all the way down. Yeah, that's it. Oh wait. I don't know, I think I changed a little bit on the timbre knob, but I made it with this same plugin. So with this patch, I made this WAV file, which I then rearranged during this last part. There's not really that much change to it. I've added one more hit right at the end, which sounded okay for me, sounded what I wanted to do. And I basically just did the same for this one, but this is just a sub bass. So I've exported the sub bass on a separate one with the separate. I've exported the sub bass. I don't have that patch anymore. I don't know why I deleted the sub patch, but sub bass, it's just a single sine wave doing just the same notes. It doesn't even have any modulation on it actually. The only thing I did with it is I added an EQ8 to get rid of everything everything above 100 Hz, and I saturated the shit out of it. Why? I wanted to make the sub sound really heavy, so that it really sounds like there's a lot of sub in it, even when you're listening on a little bit better speakers, you know, cheaper speakers, smaller speakers. And yeah, it works really well. So this is it without a sub. And this is with the sub. You can see how much weight it adds to the main sound. So what did I do with this patch? I'm gonna show you. The first oscillator is a bronze, and you can see if you want to copy this patch, just pause right now and take over all these little things. I will briefly talk you through. I have 3 oscillators. The first two are set to -12, which is one octave down, and the third one is set to -24, which is 2 octaves down. The first one is a bronze set to band minus. The second one is a throat set to band -2. And the third one is an additive 4 set to band plus minus. The main sound is coming from the additive. When I turn these two off, you're still gonna have somewhat the same sound. See? So then I added the throat, which adds a little bit more upper harmonics to the sound. And the bronze basically does the same thing. So I also have modulation oscillator 1 octave down, and this adds some ring modulation to oscillator 2, to the dirty throat, and some phase modulation to oscillator 1, which is the bronze. And without it, it sounds much weaker. And then I add these two, and really that ring modulation really adds something, and the phase on oscillator 1 really makes it sound a lot more grittier and dirtier, and even adds a little bit more vowel sound to it. Those two are then routed to the filter section, which are actually going through 2 of the filters. Oscillator 1 is sent to filter 1 and filter 2 at the same time, while oscillator 2 and 3 are only sent to filter 1. the mix between the filters is turned all the way down, so the sound is obviously only it's only you only hear what is outputted by filter 2, but the sound itself is going somewhat between serial and parallel between the filters. So it's a little bit more towards the serial, so it goes like this, but there's also a little bit of sound going straight into the second filter. First filter is double notch, which you can see it's set to this position. Quite a lot of resonance, and the cutoff position, you can see I have a performer connected to all these settings. Now that performer follows this pattern, the top one, and on a 1 to 8 measure. I haven't restarted it, so it's really like, you know, it just follows the pattern and it looks to the song position. So you can see that the range of this performer that is set to the cutoff is quite small, but that range is really important. So you might need to fiddle it a little bit to get that range to sound right just the way you want it. That performer is also controlling much more other things. For instance, it's controlling the WT position on both the bronze and the throat. And I've also connected the macro knob to this, but that is just to control the overall character of the sound. So in this track, I haven't used that. This oscillated 4 position, so 4 oscillated position is all the way down. So that means that it's set to the exact position as you see it right here. So you can just leave this. You don't need to add this, but I like it because I might reuse this patch in another track, and I can then change the overall character by turning this knob. I have another one of these knobs, which is the timbre, which does the same thing, but then to the double notch filter. So you can make it sound more low or more high, depending on where you set the timbre. Now this one is set a little bit up, so it's about there. So it might be the same as when this knob would be about here. The resonance is fairly high, and that really creates some more vowel movement in the sound. The other cool thing the performer is controlling is that it's controlling the amp on both oscillator 1 and 2. I could turn this all the way up, but then you would instantly hear these oscillators, and I want that when the sound starts with this modulation, that you only hear oscillator 3, and then because of the modulation it adds in the other 2 oscillators. I've also set up a low pass filter just to make sure there are no high frequencies when the sound starts with this modulation from the bottom part, and it opens up, so it really gives you more like a vowel movement, because when you speak you also notice that during vowel sounds your mouth opens up. So a low pass filter will open up the sound in terms of frequencies, and thus it will sound much more vowelly like human speech. I mean, when you're making vowel bass sound, you want to sort of mimic what we are doing with our mouths when we're speaking, because that is what a vowel movement is. It's basically just a natural vowel automation that you're doing with your mouth. And with filters you can basically control the shape of your mouth. So by using these two together you can create all sorts of vowel movements. You can even turn the resonance up to make it a lot more vowely. But yeah, that's just how I do this. Also, the amp on this performer is also controlled with a macro, but you can see that this macro knob is turned all the way up, so you won't have to use it. I can use it if I want to make the sound a bit more, less opened up, a bit more softer. It sounds like this. See? You can make it sound a little bit different. But I like it all the way up, so I use it all the way up. I've added a classic tube with the dry wet pointing about at the T and the drive almost all the way down. Then I've added the dimension expander with the dry wet just pointing just before the D and the size almost all the way down, just to widen it up a little bit. And I've added an EQ And basically all these knobs are set to 1 o'clock, about 1 o'clock, 1:30, and on the frequency is also being controlled by the same performer. Then I don't have any noise in here, don't have any feedback in here. On inset 1 I've added a parabolic shaper. That parabolic shaper is basically just all the way maxed out. So dry wet is all the way up and the drive is all the way up, and this really adds a lot of the grit and distortion to the sound. Then I've added the sine shaper, which is almost all the way down on the dry wet, and the drive is pointing just before the T, which is just adding a little bit more distortion. Then one more important thing is the voicing tab. I've set it to 16 voices, and this really makes it sound big. Set to monophonic because I don't want to play chords or anything with this, so set it to monophone and use the legato triller setting for the trigger. I've also added a little bit of pan position, set it to about halfway between mono and full, and I've added a stereo macro knob to this slider so I can make the sound more stereo or less stereo if I want. That's about it. I don't know, for the routing, oh yeah, this might be interesting. The sine shaper is before filter 1 and the parabolic shaper is after filter 1, and then it's added into this filter 2. So actually the both insert 1 and insert 2 shaping sounds are both the parabolic shaper and the sine shaper are actually being filtered by the low pass after they add the distortion, so that the filtering of this low pass really sound very clean. And when I would put insert 1 after filter 2, it would not sound that clean. Maybe I can show that. And then after filter 2, you can hear that it sounds much more distorted when the sound starts than with this, because it uses the low pass filter and that follows along this. So when the sound starts like that, you know, you have that opening up shape, so this low pass filter is gonna open up, and that really controls the sound in a different way and makes it sound much more clean. So that's it basically for this one. I've then exported that into this one, which is basically just an exported version. And I also had one for the sub, but I don't know why I deleted that track, that patch, but yeah, and then I've basically just placed it here. I changed this one a little bit. I just took that first hit and copied it over a couple of times. Did the same thing with that one, and I copied this one over one more time to the end, just to add some variation. And I could do totally different things with it, like I did right here. I changed a little bit in the last part of the drop, but that's about it. And that's it for the main sound. I did do some processing to this, and I want to talk about that right now. Let's see. It's the last thing I need to talk about. Here we have without the processing. That's the bass. I added an EQ8 to get rid of the low frequencies. Just that. Then I added the camel fat. With the distortion turned on, there's a little bit of tube and a little bit of Mac distortion, and I turned the volume down. This makes it a lot more heavy, really heavy. Then I added a vowel filter. I used the vowel comb preset, set to vowel mode. Vowel A is the A with, how do you call that? 2 dots, I don't know. And vowel B is set to the E. A little bit of overdrive, and the cutoff is being controlled by the envelope follower. So this is the envelope follower. Copy these settings if you want. I think it's just the basic default settings, and I turn the mix down to about there, so that makes the sound even more distorted. So then I added one more EQ8, which controls the mid frequencies a bit and controls the upper frequencies a lot. And then I added an EQ8 basically because I found that the high frequencies were sounding very, very stereo, and a lot of the things that you could do, sometimes when something sounds too mono, too much in the center, you can basically just increase the high frequencies on the sides of the signal and decrease the high frequencies on the mid of the signal to make it sound more stereo. But in this case, it sounded too stereo in the high frequency, so I wanted to make it sound a little bit more to the center, and I turned the EQ to the mid side mode, as you can see here. And then this is the mid, so in the mid you can see I add some high frequencies, and in the sides I take those out of there. So that really, it makes the sound a little bit less wide, but because the sound is already very wide, it will sound a little bit more centered, and it's just a little mixing trick that you can use. It's not really needed. I found I needed to add this during the mixing stage. So that's it for the first in a row of videos about the main drop section of this track, and next week I'm gonna show the other bass sounds, and maybe I'll make a start with the middle part of the drop. If you want to download this track, then click the link in the description box below this video to go to my SoundCloud and download that track for free. This was the fourth in a row of special videos about this remix. For all your questions, click the bottom left to tweet them at ARTFX Studios and I'll answer them as soon as possible. Or click the bottom right and become a member of the ARTFX website to share your music, give to and receive feedback from other users, and just have a great time on the forum. Subscribe for more tutorials and have a nice day. See ya!